Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview, this time covering VCT Pacific Stage 1 for playoffs. My guest at this time is it's FrosT of Talon Esports, head coach of said team, coming off of their match against Gen.G, in which they came out on the losing end. So let's go down to the lower bracket in said playoff phase. And so, FrosT, thank you
Yep.
so much for the opportunity for this quick conversation. Obviously, tough way to go down early on in this playoff run, but still, such is the hand that you're dealt. I gotta ask you first and foremost, what are your thoughts, your emotions, your biggest takeaways from this match?
I think when we feel like we know what we're doing, we can win, probably against anybody, as you guys keep saying. The issue is that there are breakdowns. So, for instance, I obviously swap comps. So the question becomes, was it too much too fast? Should we have stayed with the old comp and just made adjustments? And then on Pearl, we tried a different veto process that I thought would yield better results. And Pearl, it seemed like there was confusion as to what we were supposed to do in certain situations. And again, it goes back to, is it too much too fast? A new comp, a new map in 5 days. So we're gonna have to look at that, review it. I thought Icebox was much closer than people think, especially because we had so much advantage, but we kept dying to their post plants, even with man advantage, and we had planned for that. But we didn't exactly do what we were supposed to before they get on the bomb site, so that was very unfortunate to watch.
Okay, I'm curious as to why you kind of interpreted it that way on Icebox. What do you feel the team missed out on in particular that stood out to you that in a way kind of led to the 13-6 result?
I mean, they didn't do anything. If you think about what they did on attack, they did nothing. They just mid 30'd. They were in a 3-1-1 or a 1-3-1, or even sometimes just like a 2-1-2 B side two. And all they did was use a KO knife, and it went pipes. And if the KO knife was broken, there was nobody going up belt. They normally ended up B, or they did like a mid prod, and then they came back and did other stuff. We had planned for all of this, so we knew exactly what was going to happen. The only time my jet went belt was on a eco buy, so there was no support to swing. So Primi dies for free, and he has a one-on-one, but he dies from the side because nobody else swung with him because they don't have the guns. Obviously, that's not what we planned and prepared. Um, on B, they were going basically into double bunker, which should have worked in our favor, and it did in practice, obviously, which was very interesting. Like going through the util that we would have there should have been a lot harder, but it wasn't. Um, Obviously, I made a role change with Killua and Jit in order to make the comp happen, and I think that's where the breakdowns were because Killua isn't as experienced as Jit is in our system.
Mhm.
So, yeah. And then like whenever Primi was on B, he was in the same spots he was versus T1. That was technically not part of the fucking game plan. But all of a sudden he's doing the exact same thing as if Munchkin and the rest of them don't VOD review and don't know what he's gonna do and where he's gonna be. So all they did, wall up, util, got him out of there. Now my op is sitting behind a wall. Unlucky. Like we had planned for all these things, but when you look at the game state, they gave us pretty much what we expected. Our reactions were very different than what we designed. So, for instance, on the round I mentioned where we died in the post plant, I think that was a 5v3, by the way.
Mhm.
So technically you're supposed to win those. The problem is that comp is pure stall. So you end up in a scenario where even with advantage, you're still losing rounds. You really can't do that at this level. So that's just pretty unlucky.
No, appreciate the insight on all of that aspects, all of those aspects of the match. It's and also I want to bring in another interesting point that you brought up in the press conference, or more so the Scrum interview that yourself and Cruz did a few moments ago before the actual start of this recording. The division of responsibilities, and one in which you have with Joby, the assistant coach of this said team, and I'm curious on how that kind of works and how that kind of like transpires when it comes to preparing for a given match or a given like map or anything else of the like. How do you view the division of roles when it comes to preparation for like today and also like for the next opponent that you have in playoffs, and how does that kind of thing work?
Jovi and I usually talk about it. So we came in here with the idea that so when we got him in kickoff, he was still acclimating to Asia. He he moved from North America. So for kickoff, I was still pretty much like, doing everything myself and using him to, help me when, if I was running out of time or if there's just things I need to help with. But by the time season 1 started, we basically had a certain level of division of duties. So particularly he got some maps, some comps. Depending on the opponent, he'll just ante for us. So, he will instruct us on what the game plan should be. Like, hey, man, I think we should do X, Y, Z. I think on these rounds, we want to look to this because, this is a habit I'm seeing that they have. And Cruz and I will be in that meeting and we'll just all decide based on his input. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes, he's giving me input based on what I'm saying, we should do or suggesting as to what we're going to do. For this in particular, I had Gen.G. He had all of Boom and he's prepared for Boom. And I was very confident that if we kept past Gen.G, he was going to bring it home. It's unfortunate, like I said in the scrum, that I didn't give him the opportunity to do that. We haven't had a discussion about Nongshim, but Nongshim might be either split duty or one of us takes lead. I think given what just happened on Pearl and Icebox, I'm leaning towards just having him game plan specifically because it seems like me and them were not on the same page on Icebox, which I suggested we run. And then on Pearl, it looked like we did not even remember anything that we were supposed to do. So I have to go back and figure out exactly what the breakdowns were and why they happened.
Now focusing more so on the team. I was looking over into this Talon squad. It's been a little bit more of a rework, not really rework, but more so plenty of changes happened to the team, going from the past core from like the one that qualified for Champions 2024 to basically going to an all-Thai squad. And I'm curious on how that progress has been going for the team and also for yourself, because like for a lot of people, for a lot of the guys that are there in the squad, I mean, it's like their first experience of dealing with a coach like yourself. Very outspoken, very direct. In a lot of ways, I feel like Thai players are not really familiar with that aspect. I mean, sure, you got Cruz and Primi already familiar with how you do things, but as a collective, how have you viewed their I don't want to say familiarity, but more so their management, or how they have reacted to your coaching style? How has that process been so far?
Luckily for me, the process has been smooth. I've also had to be much more lenient and patient than I have in the past. But yeah, I mean, you bring up good points. I've had to sort of, really learn how to be a Latin American, from New York City in Asia, because the culture is so different. The way people talk to each other is different. The things like the certain social cues and like interpersonal communication and how it happens here is obviously much different than in the United States. Luckily, though, before this at Furia with Brazilians, it was also an acclimation process because even they're much different than Americans, basically. So I'm fortunate that I have the help of like Cruz and Jit and Primi, because they kind of have already been here and they kind of know what the deal is. So it's been kind of, I think, easier than it has definitely been in the past. Thai's a good sport. I mean, he's a sponge. He just wants to learn. He's a very talented kid. And Killua, I think I've been harder on him than probably anybody, especially this first season. But our relationship is good. He's handled it very well. And I mean, he just wants to win. So he's just going to do anything that he can do. But yeah, Thai culture, from what I've told, guys like me don't really last long in those rooms. But luckily, I think I have the right mix. So, it like saves me from having, headaches and issues and all that stuff. So on a personal level.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely good to have all the team buy into what you're wanting them to do. One more question before I have to wrap this up, because I understand I'm getting low on time. How do you look at the road ahead? Now you guys are in the lower bracket. Obviously, the goal is to still try to qualify for Masters. So how do you look at the challenge ahead?
I mean, I think we are certainly capable of winning this Gen.G series. I mean, I said it in the thing. I probably look like an asshole now, but I really believe it. I actually think that we can win Pacific. Like, I don't think it's far fetched to say that I see it. Like, I understand what's going on. Our inexperience does show, especially against some of the more experienced teams. But I think at our peak, I think we can do it. I'm not afraid of the loser bracket run. Nongshim is going to be highly motivated. We beat them twice already. It's so hard to win in this league. Beating a team 3 times in 1 year is almost impossible. With Secret last year, we won 3, lost 1. So Nongshim is certainly going to look to come back and beat us however they can, and we just have to do our best to try to, fight back. I think we're going to have a long losers bracket run. PRX is in there. And then either T1 or DRX will be there too. So it's like, now that we lost in winners, we can't afford to have another bad game, or we can't afford to not be on the same page because there just isn't enough time.
Of course, and even so, despite that low of time, hopefully you guys can manage to bounce back in a much more emphatic way. FrosT, thank you so much for the opportunity, for the interview. Really do appreciate it. And of course, best of luck goes to yourself and the rest of the team for the journey ahead.
Thank you, Pedro. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.